In the last video, we set up the URL for the homepage. Now we need to set up the view for the homepage so that this URL can actually do something. So what we're going to do is define the view inside of our forum class, or forum app. So go to the views.py inside of the forums application. And as you will see in here, it basically doesn't have anything, which is why we got to write some code. So as I mentioned in the previous video, the views.py is the functions and classes which basically handle the actual URL when someone goes to it. So the first thing we need to do is understand Django's view system, which is a class-based view. And so what I'm going to do is go to the internet and type in Django class-based view documentation. Okay, so just to give you an idea, Django has really good documentation on the internet. So you can pretty much Google anything and you'll see a page that looks like this. So this is an explanation of their class-based view. La-di-da, da-di-da. So what we need to do is from django.views.generic import view. And so what this is the view class. And so as we talked about if you've talked about object-oriented programming before, basically the view class defines a bunch of functionality on how to be a view. However, there are some methods which are not written, which we will then override when we extend from the view class. So I'm going to make a class called homepageView, and I'll just call it homepage, and it's going to extend or inherit from the view class. Now, when someone goes to a URL inside of a inside of our website and tries to get the HTML, they're making a GET request. So there's different types of requests. So there can be a GET request. It's usually capitalized, so GET request. There's also a POST request. So this is sending data to the server. This is getting data from the server. So for this view, it can handle both a GET request and a POST request. So if you want to handle the GET request, you override the GET method. And so because it's a method, the first thing it takes in is self. And the next thing it takes in is the request. So the request is basically this thing which has a lot of information. So it has information on what IP address made this request, what the various cookies are on that computer that made the request. Maybe they're sending some data with the request, so it would all be inside of here. But yeah, basically that's what we do in the request. Then what we need to do is actually return. So the thing is that what I think is nice about Django is that we know that when someone goes to a URL, they get to this code and this is what's run. So it's kind of easy to think about. If I want to do logic when someone goes to a page, I would put it inside of the view function. Now, a GET request usually ends in us returning some HTML. So what we're going to do is return, but we can't just return the HTML. We actually return this thing called the render function. Because as we'll talk about later, HTML in Django is actually templated. Because remember how we want to dynamically load the HTML based on what the data is? So that means we have to render it. So for now, we're not going to do anything special or fancy, but just return render. The first thing it takes in is the request. And then we need to give the name of the HTML file. So here we're going to call it home.html. Now we haven't created the home.html yet. We're going to make it in some of the next videos, but we'll show how to make it and how to tell Django where it actually is. So for now, we've made this view for the home page, and we made a GET request. Now, that GET request basically returns the home.html. So the last thing that we're missing besides the actual template for the home.html is to tell the urls.py to use this view. So the way that we do that is we go back to the urls.py inside of my forum, and we have to say to use the home page view. So next to the URL inside of here, you put homepage, and then the syntax is basically as it says right here, dot as view. And now, when someone goes to the URL here, which is just the homepage, it'll send it to this view, which is over here, and do this GET request and return home.html. Now, the last thing that some of you will forget and get an error about is that we need to actually import homepage.asView. So this brings up an interesting topic about importing things from other files within Django. Now notice how urls.py is inside of this folder, but the views is inside of this folder. So how do we actually get to the views? So the way that we do this is by Django's model, where every file is run as though it is at the top level directory. So even though urls.py is in here, to get to the views.py, I'm going to do forum.views, and that'll get me here. So I'm going to do from forum.views. This is the forum folder, and this is the views file. I'm going to say import home page. So this will import the homepage class, which we can put here. And better yet, so that we don't have to keep typing in the names of things to import, we can just do import star. And it'll import any and all classes and views we define inside of the forum views. So just to give you a quick recap, we've defined the URL for the homepage and told it to go to the homepage view. Inside of views.py in the forum application, we've created a homepage view which extends from the Django generic view class. We've defined the get method, which is what is called when someone requests the homepage, and it returns the home.html. Now, the home.html is not yet defined, and in the next video, we'll actually go ahead and define it.